Welcome to Level 1 Life Podcast. Have you ever been in your first or second job, maybe trying really hard to make a good impression, and then bam, you get some feedback that just, well, it hits differently. Maybe it feels like a punch to the gut, or maybe it's just so vague you're left completely confused, sort of wondering what on earth they were even talking about. It's a pretty universal thing, I think, especially when you're just starting out trying to figure out the professional world. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really insightful book. It kind of flips the script on this whole challenge. It's called Thanks for the Feedback by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen. Usually, right, we talk about how to give feedback, but this book, it shifts the focus to something maybe even more important, the art of receiving it well. Our mission today is basically twofold. First, let's unpack why getting feedback can feel so darn hard sometimes. And second, we want to arm you with some really practical tools so you can actually understand, process, and use even the tough stuff to grow, professionally, personally, all of it.
Whether it's a formal review, just a casual comment from a coworker, or a big chat with your boss, you'll feel more ready. Okay, let's get into it. The authors, Stone and Heen, they're super honest right from the get-go. They say, look, humans are naturally wired for learning. Sounds great, right?
Yeah, sounds positive.
But then they hit you with this. Learning about ourselves can be, and I quote, painful, and feedback often feels less like a gift of learning and more like a colonoscopy.
Whoa, a colonoscopy. That's quite the analogy.
It is. But why use something so invasive?
Well, it's stark, isn't it? But it captures something real. Feedback, especially the critical kind, can feel incredibly invasive. You're exposed, someone's looking deep, pointing out things you might not want to see, or maybe didn't even know were there. And yeah, like the procedure, it might reveal something crucial for your health, or in this case, your growth, but the process. It's uncomfortable. You don't always feel in control. It perfectly highlights that core tension they talk about, our drive to learn and bumping up against our deep longing for acceptance.
Right.
Because feedback, let's face it, often carries this little message, hey, how you are right now, it's not quite okay, and that stings.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking back. First few months on a new team, you're trying so hard, someone gives you a suggestion, even kindly, and your stomach just drops. Or you get defensive. Why? What's going on under the hood there?
That's exactly what the book digs into, and they nail it by identifying these three main feedback triggers. These are basically like emotional tripwires that block our ability to even hear what's being said properly.
Okay, triggers. Like knee-jerk reactions.
Kind of, yeah. The first type they call truth triggers. These go off when the substance of the feedback just feels wrong, like that's not true, that's unfair, or that's totally unhelpful. Your manager says you need to be more proactive, but you're thinking, hang on, I spent all morning researching that exact issue.
Where you feel misunderstood.
Exactly. The focus isn't on potential learning, it's on the perceived inaccuracy. You're already building your defense case.
Okay, that's one. What else?
Then you've got relationship triggers. These aren't about what is said, but about who is saying it. It's tied up with your history with that person, their credibility in your eyes, maybe their motives, or just how you feel they treat you in general.
So like if you don't trust the person giving the feedback.
Precisely. Or maybe you feel they're hypocritical or they delivered it really poorly. I remember getting feedback once from someone I felt had totally thrown me under the bus just the week before.
Oof.
Yeah. The feedback itself might have been valid, but all my brain could scream was, who are you to tell me this? Your focus shifts entirely from the message to, as the book puts it, the audacity of the person delivering it.
Okay, I can definitely relate to that one. What's the third?
The third one is often the deepest, the identity trigger. These are the ones that hit our sense of self. They threaten our identity, our sense of who we are, to come undone. This kind of feedback can leave you feeling just overwhelmed, threatened, maybe ashamed, or completely off balance.
Give me an example.
Imagine you pride yourself on being a great team player, and someone tells you you're not collaborative enough. Or maybe you see yourself as creative, and the feedback is your ideas aren't very original.
Ow.
It feels like an attack on your very core, who you believe yourself to be. It shakes your foundations.
Wow. Okay, truth, relationship, identity. Those make so much sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've definitely felt those derail conversations. So what do we do? How do we get past those initial reactions?
Well, the first step really is just recognizing them. Naming the trigger can take some of its power away. But then, crucially, you need to understand what kind of feedback you're actually getting. Because it turns out feedback isn't just one thing, and mixing them up causes a lot of the trouble.
What do you mean, different kinds?
The authors break it down into 3 distinct forms, each with a different job to do. First, there's appreciation. Simple enough. Its purpose is just to acknowledge, motivate, connect. It's the thanks for staying late or great job on that presentation, and that makes you feel seen.
Okay, appreciation. We all like that.
We do. Then there's coaching. This is aimed at helping you grow, expanding knowledge, sharpening skills, improving how you do things. It's guidance for getting better.
So advice, tips, suggestions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, there's evaluation. This tells you where you stand. It compares you against expectations or standards. Think performance reviews, rankings, grades. It informs decisions.
Appreciation, coaching, evaluation. Okay. So knowing these helps how?
Well, think about it. The book points out that often feedback is given as one type but heard as another. These are called cross-transactions.
Like wires getting crossed.
Totally. Imagine you really need some coaching on how to handle difficult client calls. You're looking for advice, but your manager just gives you an evaluation saying your client management skills are below expectations.
Ouch. That would feel awful, demoralizing.
Right. You needed guidance, you got a judgment, you're left feeling dismayed and lost, as the book says. So just identifying the purpose. Is this appreciation? Am I being coached? Or is this an evaluation? Is huge for figuring out how to respond productively.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you identify the trigger, you try to figure out the type of feedback. What's next?
The next big step before you react or judge is simply to understand. Our gut reaction, especially if a trigger's been pulled, is often what the book calls wrong spotting. We immediately hunt for what's wrong with the feedback, why the other person is mistaken.
Guilty as charged.
We all do it. But the key shift is making understanding job one. You have to resist the urge to argue back immediately and instead really try to grasp what they're saying.
Okay, but how? Especially when feedback comes wrapped in these fuzzy labels. Like someone says, you need to be more strategic or you're not pulling your weight. What do you even do with that?
Great question. Those labels are super common and super unhelpful on their own. The book gives a great technique, digging under the labels.
Yeah.
You need to clarify two things. First, where is this feedback coming from? What specific data? What did they actually see or hear? And what are their interpretations of that data?
So asking for specifics, examples.
Exactly. And second, where is it going? What's the actual advice? What are the consequences if things don't change? What are the expectations moving forward?
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's use their reckless driver example, maybe adapted for an office setting. Someone says in a meeting review, you were reckless with that client pitch. That's the label. You'd ask, okay, help me understand. What specifically did you see or hear that felt reckless? That's asking for the data. They might say, well, you skipped over the budget slide really fast, their observation. And I interpreted that as you not taking the financial constraints seriously, their interpretation.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere concrete.
Right. Then you ask, okay, so where is this going? What are you suggesting I do differently next time?
Asking for the advice expectation. They might say, just pause on the budget slide. Maybe ask if there are questions, show you've considered it carefully.
See, now that's something you can actually work with. Much better than just reckless.
Worlds better. It moves from accusation to information. This ties into another cool idea from the book. Different spotting. Instead of arguing who's right, explore why you see things differently.
Exactly. It changes the whole dynamic. It's not, you're wrong. It's, that's interesting. You saw it that way. Here's how I experienced it. What might be causing that difference? It becomes a mutual exploration, way more likely to lead to learning for both people.
This structured approach feels so much more manageable, less like bracing for impact.
It really does. It puts some control back in your hands. And building on that, a huge part of receiving feedback well is managing your own internal reaction, mastering those emotional triggers we talked about. The book mentions your feedback footprint, your typical pattern of reacting. Do you tend to lash out, shut down, get teary? Just knowing your pattern is like a blind spot alert.
So noticing, uh-oh, I'm doing that thing I do.
Exactly. It's a signal to pause, take a breath, and maybe use another tool they suggest. Separating the strands.
Separating the strands, what does that mean?
It means consciously teasing apart three things that get tangled up. 1, your feelings about the feedback. Am I angry, hurt, scared? 2, the story you're telling yourself about what it means. They hate me, I'm going to get fired, I'm useless. And 3, the actual feedback itself, the specific words that were said.
Why is separating them so important?
Because our feelings and stories can massively distort the feedback. The book has this great line about how one thing becomes everything, now becomes always, partly becomes entirely, and slightly becomes extremely.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. A tiny mistake feels like total failure.
Right. your manager says, just make sure to double check the calculations on page 5 next time. The actual feedback is small, specific, but your feeling might be panic, and your story might be, I'm terrible with details, I can't be trusted, my career is over. Separating the strands helps you see the feedback for what it actually is, not the catastrophe your brain might be making it.
Okay, that's a powerful technique. What else helps build that inner resilience?
A really core concept is cultivating a growth identity. This comes from Carol Dweck's work on mindset. It's about shifting away from a fixed mindset.
Where you think your abilities are set in stone, like I'm just not good at public speaking.
Exactly. Shifting from that to a growth mindset where you see abilities as things that can be developed. So instead of I'm bad at this, it's I'm working on getting better at this.
How does that help with feedback?
It changes everything. With a growth mindset, challenges aren't threats, they're opportunities to learn. And feedback, it's not a final judgment on your worth. It's valuable data to help you improve. It fuels growth instead of shutting it down.
So embracing the idea that you can get better.
Precisely. And a practical way to apply this growth mindset is to actively sort toward coaching.
What does that mean?
Even if feedback sounds like an evaluation, maybe it's critical, maybe it feels like a grade, try to consciously hear the coaching potential within it. If someone says, your presentation was confusing, instead of just feeling bad evaluation, ask yourself, okay, what coaching is hidden here? How can I learn to structure my presentations more clearly?
So looking for the actionable advice, even if it's not offered explicitly.
Yes. And tied to this is the idea of giving yourself a second score.
The second score.
Yeah. The first score is the feedback itself or the outcome. Maybe you got negative feedback, maybe your project didn't go well. That's score 1. The second score is how you handle score 1. How do you react? Do you learn from it? Do you try again? Focusing on that second score builds resilience. It makes growth and learning part of your identity, not just the initial success or failure.
I like that. It reframes setbacks. So it's not just about the feedback, but how you respond to it.
Exactly. It's about taking an active role. And that extends to using the feedback. The book suggests active experimentation and even coaching your coach.
Okay, tell me more about experimenting.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed and trying to change everything at once, they suggest you name one thing. Ask the feedback giver, or yourself, what's one thing I could work on that would make the biggest positive difference? It gives you focus.
Much less daunting than trying to fix 10 things.
Way less. Then try small experiments. Don't commit to a massive permanent overhaul based on one piece of feedback. Test the advice in low-risk situations. See how it feels, what the results are.
Like dipping your toe in the water?
Kind of. And be aware of the J-curve. When you try something new, you might actually get worse before you get better.
Right, like learning a new golf swing or something. Feels awkward at first.
Exactly. It takes practice for the new way to become smooth and effective. So persistence is key. Don't give up just because the first experiment feels clunky.
Makes sense. And what about coaching your coach? That sounds interesting.
It's about helping the giver give you feedback more effectively by telling them what works for you.
Oh, like managing up.
Yeah.
Almost.
A little, yeah. You could say something like, hey, I really appreciate you giving me feedback. Just so you know, I sometimes need a little time to process critical stuff before I can really take it on board. So if I seem quiet initially, that's why. I'll definitely think about it.
So you're guiding them on how best to help you learn.
Exactly. It helps them understand your process, minimizes misunderstandings, and makes the whole interaction more productive. You're helping them help you.
These are all great strategies for engaging with feedback. But what if the feedback is just bad?
Yeah.
Like genuinely unhelpful, off base, or even delivered in a toxic way? You can't just absorb everything, can you?
Absolutely not. And that's where the final crucial piece comes in. Drawing boundaries.
Setting limits.
Yes. The book stresses that being able to set limits on the feedback you receive is vital for your well-being and the health of your relationships. Especially, as you said, when you're starting out, you might feel you have to accept everything. You don't.
So what kind of boundaries are we talking about?
They give a range. The softest might be simply saying, thank you for sharing that. I'll think about it, but I may not take that advice. You're acknowledging it, but reserving judgment. A firmer boundary might be, I'm not looking for feedback on my personal life right now, or I appreciate your input generally, but I'd prefer not to discuss my presentation style today. Setting a topic or time off limits. And in really difficult or toxic situations, the boundary might need to be much starker. The way you're speaking to me is not okay. Please stop, or I'll need to end this conversation, leave this project, or think this relationship.
That takes courage, though.
It definitely does. The key is communicating the boundary gracefully. if possible. Be clear, be firm, but also try to be appreciative of perhaps good intentions, even if the delivery or content is off. They suggest using and instead of but, which is a neat trick. Instead of thanks, but I don't agree, try thanks for offering your perspective and I see it differently. Or I appreciate you wanting to help and I need to figure this part out on my own right now.
And feels less confrontational than but.
It does. It acknowledges their input while still holding your ground. It's about protecting yourself while trying to preserve the relationship where possible.
Wow. Okay. We have really covered a lot today in this deep dive on thanks for the feedback. So we went from understanding why feedback hits us so hard, those triggers.
Just truth, relationship identity.
Right. Then figuring out what kind of feedback it is.
Appreciation, coaching, evaluation.
To then actively managing our own reactions, like separating the strands and cultivating that growth mindset.
Yeah, shifting from I am this way to I am learning.
And finally, knowing how to engage actively through experiments and coaching your coach, but also knowing when and how to draw boundaries.
It really is a powerful shift in perspective the book offers. It argues that the biggest leverage point for learning isn't actually in how feedback is given, but in how skillfully we, as receivers, can process and use it.
Taking control of the receiving end.
Exactly. And when you get better at receiving feedback, it doesn't just help you navigate your career, especially those tricky early years. It actually helps create a better, healthier feedback culture around you. Think about it: if you respond thoughtfully, ask clarifying questions, and show you're open to learning, it makes people more comfortable giving helpful feedback in the future. It's not just personal growth, it can actually shape your work environment.
That's a great point. It has a ripple effect. So, as a final thought for everyone listening, especially if you're newer to the workforce, think about the most difficult piece of feedback you've received so far. If you could rewind, knowing what you know now, and apply just one of these ideas, maybe it's different spotting to understand their view, or separating the strands to manage your reaction, how might that conversation have gone differently? And more importantly, how might your growth after that conversation have changed? Something to think about as you head into your next feedback situation. Turn it from something to dread into an opportunity. See you in the next episode of Level 1 Life Podcast.